Greetings in the story of Deceit Workshop. A chilling tone echoed through my phone, akin to ice water. It appears Garrett, the forensic accountant, has uncovered discrepancies, 3 secret offshore accounts that suggest Vanessa's departure wasn't just an escape, but rather a 1.5-year-long scheme to empty our finances. Standing in my barren living room, bereft because of Vanessa's decision to take the furniture during our separation, she claimed they were family heirlooms, a reward for her endurance through our strife. My strain on her was questioning her late-night returns thrice weekly and proposing marriage counseling. That confrontation ended with her seeking separation and residing with her sister, or so I believed. The ensuing separation was merciless. Upon probing her actions, Vanessa turned icy, as if a switch had been flipped. One week we were planning our 10th anniversary journey, the next she was serving me legal papers and depleting half our savings. 50% of our shared savings, as allowed during a separation in our state, was taken by her, leaving me hurt and confused, but I conceded. 3 months have passed since then, and 3 accounts were mentioned over the phone. I didn't understand. She withdrew more than her half from our joint accounts, which was legal, Garrett. However, my lawyer Mitchell had that tone he uses before delivering bad news. It wasn't just her half that she took. After the legal withdrawal, she continued to access your accounts, totaling an additional $340,000 over 18 months. The room spun when I heard this. That seems impossible, I should have noticed. She was clever about it, making small transfers, legitimate-looking withdrawals for business expenses from your company account that you authorized, setting this up long before she filed for separation. The pattern was uncovered by a forensic accountant. Each transfer was right below the limit for automatic scrutiny. I found myself seated on the floor, the cold hardwood beneath me, my thoughts racing. Where is the money? The funds came in sporadically, distributed across 3 accounts established 16 months ago, with her being the sole signatory. My mind drifted back to 16 months prior, when Vanessa had unexpectedly taken an interest in our financial matters. She'd asked insightful questions about my business dealings, the company setup, and expense reimbursements. I was delighted. For years, she had left all financial aspects to me, but now it seemed she was planning her exit strategy. Mitchell, I need clarity. Is this about divorce or potential criminal activity? If we can prove intent to defraud, forge signatures, falsify documents, and evidence of systematic theft, the district attorney might take notice. However, Garrett, proving such crimes will be challenging. We need indisputable evidence. Then retrieve the forensic accountant's complete report. I want to trace every transaction, every detail, and about Mitchell, everywhere the money went before it reached the alligators. After our conversation, I stared at the vacant spot where our couch used to be. Vanessa wept when she took it, claiming it brought back memories of happier times that she couldn't bear to leave with me. I assisted her in loading it into the moving truck. The couch cost $8,000 and was custom-made. She might have paid for it using my stolen funds. For a week, I delved into a forensic accountant's report. Her name was Monica Price, with 20 years of financial fraud investigation experience. The report she prepared, spanning 187 pages, included transaction records, time sequence analysis, and pattern recognition. The narrative it portrayed sent shivers down my spine. Vanessa didn't accidentally commit theft. She orchestrated it. It began subtly 18 months ago, with her filing expense reports for business development lunches and client entertainment to my company. On occasion, my wife would organize dinners for my clients, and I had approved the related expenses, such as $200 or $350. However, it turned out that she had called the restaurants, and more than half of them had no record of reservations under her name on those specific dates. The remaining ones showed bills that were significantly lower than what she claimed, suggesting she inflated expenses and pocketed the difference. Additionally, there were several transactions to an account I was not familiar with, labeled as savings property tax. Since we both had online access to this account, it was odd because she made numerous transfers totaling $42,000 over 14 months, while our actual annual property tax bill is only $8,000. The most apparent theft occurred from our investment account, which contained $280,000 in mutual funds. 6 months ago, Vanessa carried out a portfolio adjustment that entailed selling certain assets. The funds were intended for reinvestment, yet they remained untouched. Instead, she transferred $140,000 to an account at another financial institution. When I had inquired about it then, she had displayed documentation suggesting we were expanding into foreign funds with superior yields. The paperwork appeared authentic. Monica had verified the account numbers. The receiving institution indeed existed, but the account number was incorrect by 2 digits. In reality, the money had been transferred to a personal account under Vanessa's name at a distinct bank. The letterhead had been skillfully fabricated. My wife wasn't merely unfaithful, she was also involved in a criminal act. During our meeting, Mitchell posed a question. Should we report this to the police immediately or wait for further evidence? We were in his conference room. Monica was present as well, alongside Helena Cross, Mitchell's partner and attorney specializing in white-collar crime. Helena suggested that if we proceed, the district attorney might launch an investigation. Vanessa could be arrested, but if the proof isn't ironclad, she might avoid conviction. Once she learns about our plans, she may transfer funds, destroy records, and flee. Mitchell proposed that waiting would allow us to construct an unassailable case, but we risk her moving the money regardless. He pointed out that those offshore accounts can be accessed from anywhere, and I glanced at Monica, wondering if we could trace any attempted transfers. Through my connections, I've established alerts on the accounts, so I'd be informed of any activity in a short time frame. However, Garrett could enter any bank with appropriate credentials and wire that money to multiple locations. We would struggle to locate it. How long until you construct the required case? I inquired from Helena. She replied 3 weeks, perhaps 4. I need records from every restaurant, every transaction, every supposed business expense. I want her signature analyzed by a handwriting expert to prove forgery on some of these transfers. I also require testimony from your business partners confirming she had no authority to make company expense claims. Moreover, I'd like to identify the affair partner, as I suspect the money was not solely for their benefit. Monica nodded slowly. She can examine unusual spending patterns, hotels, restaurants, recurring payments. Do it swiftly, I said, because I am tired of being deceived. The affair partner's name was Kerr and Whitmore. Monica discovered him through credit card statements. Vanessa had been careless with one card, a new one she'd opened in her name, thinking I wouldn't see the statements, but she'd used our home address and mail forwarding was still active to my new apartment. When an envelope arrived from an unfamiliar credit card company, I opened it. The statement showed $34,000 in charges over 8 months, high-end restaurants, weekend hotel stays, 2 plane tickets to Aruba and regular payments, to a landlord for what appeared to be an apartment lease. Monica traced the lease. It was a downtown loft, $2,800 per month. The co-signer was Kerr and Whitmore. I had our investigator pull everything on him. He's 34, works in commercial real estate, divorced 2 years ago, and what disturbed me is that he worked with Vanessa's company on a property deal 16 months ago, right when the theft started, right when the offshore accounts were opened. They had been planning this together. Helena presented her findings 3 weeks later. We were back in the conference room, but this time there were 2 DA investigators present. One was a financial crime specialist named Torres, the other his supervisor. The evidence is extraordinary, Torres said, flipping through Monica's report: systematic fraud, identity theft, forgery, wire fraud across state lines. The offshore accounts pushed this into federal territory. Her intent is clear, Helena added. She didn't make mistakes or act impulsively. She established shell companies, forged documents, and systematically drained accounts while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. What do you want? Torres asked me. I want every penny back, I want her prosecuted, and I want it public record what she did. Torres exchanged a look with his supervisor. You comprehend that should we proceed with criminal charges, it shifts to a state issue. Restitution will be part of sentencing, but the criminal case takes precedence over your divorce settlement. I understand, and you are ready to testify. If this goes to trial, you'll take the stand. The defense may attempt to portray you as vindictive, claiming this is about the affair rather than the theft. Let them try. I said I have nothing to hide, she's the criminal. Torres acknowledged, then we will proceed. We'll secure a warrant for her financial records and bring her in for interrogation, sir. You must comprehend this. Once we proceed, your wife will be privy to all details. She'll engage a lawyer and matters become messier. They already have been. I said that now things get truthful. They apprehended Vanessa on a Tuesday morning. I wasn't present, but Mitchell contacted me immediately afterward. At the flat she shared with Kieran, whom I supported financially through ill-gotten means, police carried out a search warrant, confiscating computers, papers, and financial records simultaneously. She phoned me from the station. I didn't respond. She called again 6 times, then her lawyer contacted me. Mr. Foster, this is Dennis Harding. I represent Vanessa. I believe there's been a misconception that we can rectify. No misunderstanding, I replied. Your client swindled $340,000 from me using deceit and forgery. The proof is corroborated. Advise her to prepare for incarceration. I advised against it. Mitchell phoned back 10 minutes later amused, as his lawyer contacted me querying if you'd reconsider dropping the accusations in exchange for her returning the funds. What was your response? You clarified that the state, not you, is prosecuting, and she's facing charges of wire fraud, identity theft, forgery, and grand larceny. Even if every penny were returned, the DA won't dismiss the case as she allegedly committed federal crimes. That's good news. Garrett's bail hearing is tomorrow. I thought you want to be informed. I did indeed wish to know, and I wanted to attend the courtroom. It was smaller than anticipated. Vanessa sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, looking unrecognizable compared to the woman I had paid. Her hair was tied back, bare-faced. She seemed weary. Good. The judge was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Kellerman, who swiftly reviewed the charges, having dealt with similar cases numerous times. In court, Foster, you're accused of wire fraud, grand larceny, identity theft, and forging financial documents. The state claims you illegally took $340,000 from your husband over an 18-month span by using fake expense claims, forged authorizations, and offshore accounts. How do you plead? Vanessa's lawyer responds, not guilty, Your Honor. Immediately, the prosecutor, Andrea Walsh, a sharp woman, requests remand without bail, Your Honor. Foster demonstrates a propensity to evade justice. She manages 3 offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands with substantial funds, has minimal ties to the community beyond defrauding her husband, and the complexity of the scheme hints at the ability and motivation to leave jurisdiction. Yet Vanessa's attorney countered, but Judge Kellerman appeared skeptical. Bail is set at $500,000 in cash only, declared the judge. Defendant will relinquish her passport, be subject to GPS monitoring, and maintain no contact with the victim. The next hearing is scheduled for 30 days later. Vanessa glanced at me for the first time, looked back impassively. She had wept when she used our couch when she filed for separation. Likely she would cry in court too. I was over her tears. The preliminary hearing took place 60 days later, during which the state presented its evidence, and the judge determined if there was enough to go to trial. Mitchell stated it was generally a formality, but Andrea Walsh sought to make a statement. She certainly did. The courtroom was more crowded this time, with Vanessa's family in attendance. Her sister, who had allegedly been providing temporary housing during the separation, and her parents, all of whom had sent me hostile messages following the arrest, accusing me of being vengeful that Vanessa made mistakes but didn't deserve prison. I blocked them all. Monica Price served as the state's first witness, guiding the court through the forensic accounting report meticulously, detailing every transaction, forged signature, and false expense claim. The pattern is clear, testified Monica. This was not an impulsive crime. Foster investigated international banking laws, set up shell corporations, and crafted a seemingly legitimate trail to transfer assets abroad. The complexity implies careful planning and forethought. Defense lawyers attempted to find loopholes, but could it not be that Mrs. Foster was just confused about the expense reimbursement procedure? Monica remained composed for 18 months, while also forging her husband's signature on investments and fabricating financial documents with fictitious account numbers. No, this isn't confusion. It's wire fraud. Next came the handwriting expert, a retired FBI analyst named Donald Pierce. He had examined every document Vanessa submitted for expense reimbursements and investment transfers, testifying that in 14 instances, her handwriting did not match. Andrea compared her husband's genuine signatures with the ones she falsified to authorize transactions, showcasing that her forgeries were skillful yet distinguishable. A closer look at the sequence reveals inconsistencies in pressure patterns and stroke order when contrasted with Mr. Foster's authentic signature. During the trial, images of his genuine signature and the forged ones were displayed on the courtroom screen. The discrepancies between the two became evident to everyone once he highlighted them. The defense attorney appeared somber. Then Andrea summoned me to testify. Mr. was replaced with the prosecutor in this context. 4 months ago, my lawyer disclosed that withdrawals persisted after our legal separation. I wasn't aware of the offshore accounts or the forgeries of my signature. Had I approved any transfers to accounts solely in her name? No. Andrea guided me through the chronology. I had become suspicious when Vanessa began acting distant, suggested counseling, and filed for separation. Believing it was part of the legal process, I willingly surrendered half our savings to her. Speaking candidly, I was stunned when I discovered the extent of my wife's theft. Vanessa seemed blank, gazing at the table, appearing foolish to me. I had placed complete trust in her and granted her access to everything because she was my spouse. I believed we were constructing a life together. Instead, she was plotting to rob me and vanish. During that period, did you suspect she was having an affair? Yes, that's why I inquired about her late nights and suggested counseling, hoping we could resolve issues. However, she filed for separation and expedited the theft. The defense attorney's questioning was foreseeable. Did I consider my wife undeserving after 9 years of marriage? Wasn't I being vindictive about the affair? Might this be a misinterpretation? Counselor, I stated, if my wife had requested a divorce and proposed a fair settlement, I would have negotiated in good faith. However, she forged my signature, fabricated financial records, and stole $340,000. That's not a misunderstanding. That's deliberate theft, Judge Kellerman demanded closing arguments. Andrea's argument was crushing. Your Honor, this case provides indisputable evidence of systematic deceit. In the case at hand, Foster didn't act spontaneously. Instead, she researched, planned, and executed an intricate financial scheme involving forged documents, multiple banks, and international accounts. The evidence points to 18 months of calculated criminal activity, prompting the state to seek a trial on all charges. Defense counsel tried his best but was unable to explain away forged signatures, false account numbers, or Cayman Islands accounts opened 16 months prior to separation. Judge Kellerman reviewed the evidence in just 15 minutes. She had experience with embezzlement and fraud cases, stating that this case was a textbook example of both. The trial, scheduled for 90 days from then, was marked by Vanessa's family's outrage. Her sister accused me of ruining her life, while her father labeled me vindictive. Judge Kellerman threatened another outburst would lead to clearing the courtroom. I left without looking back. The trial spanned 8 days, with Andrea Walsh prosecuting as if personally affronted by Vanessa's crimes. Every transaction was meticulously documented, every lie exposed, and every forged signature displayed on screens for the jury. The defense strategy seemed to present Vanessa as a desperate woman driven to extremes due to a failing marriage, using character witnesses who testified to her kindness, generosity, and charity work. However, Andrea Walsh dismantled this image on cross-examination, revealing that Foster was involved in charity work using funds stolen from her husband, that her generosity stemmed from forged and fraudulent sources, and that she was desperate, a motive perhaps for opening Offshore account 16 months before filing for separation. The affair with Keir and Whitmore surfaced on day 4, as financial records subpoenaed by Andrea revealed that Vanessa had been transferring him $75,000 over the course of a year, with his defense claiming he believed the money was hers and was unaware of its source. The jury found no credence in it, as Keir wasn't on trial. Instead, it was Vanessa who faced charges. The most damaging evidence surfaced from my business associates, 3 individuals who had collaborated with me for over a decade and were acquainted with Vanessa socially, corroborating her lack of authority to submit expense claims. We were taken aback. One partner testified while showing us the expense reports bearing his signature. We thought they were valid because it was unthinkable that his wife would embezzle from her own husband. On day 7, Vanessa took the stand. A fiasco ensued as her lawyer attempted to portray her as an unfortunate victim of circumstance, but Andrea's cross-examination proved meticulous. You stated that you were worried about your financial future, which led to the opening of 3 offshore accounts 16 months prior to filing for separation. However, I was merely preparing for the future, intending to deceive my husband, not you. Yet, you falsely used his signature 14 times. Was this out of panic? I assumed he wouldn't object to the theft of $340,000. Vanessa broke down in tears, but it was you who amassed all the money. I contributed as well, and therefore I believed I deserved it. Was it justifiable to forge documents, create fictitious account numbers, and deceive financial institutions? Tears flowed more intensely as her lawyer requested a recess. Judge Kellerman granted the request, but the damage had already been done. Closing arguments took place on day 8. And Andrea, with silent rage, stood before the jury, stating, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a case about a failing marriage. It's a case about premeditated, systematic theft." Mrs. Foster didn't err. She executed a premeditated scheme. She delved into international banking, honed her husband's signature forgery, concocted counterfeit papers, embezzled $340,000 over an 18-month period while preserving the facade of a conventional marriage. This constitutes wire fraud, grand larceny, and identity theft. The evidence amassed against her was conclusive. After a 6-hour deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of guilty on all charges. Sentencing ensued 3 weeks later. Mrs. Foster's legal counsel sought leniency, pointing to her absence of prior criminal convictions and readiness to compensate. However, Andrea Walsh advocated for the maximum sentence due to the complexity of the crime and the violation of trust. Judge Kellerman struck a balance, sentencing Mrs. Foster. In this case, you were found guilty not of a crime born out of passion, but of premeditated fraud that spanned over an extended duration. You breached your husband's trust, forged his signature, and embezzled substantial assets while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. This court finds your actions despicable. On the charge of wire fraud, you receive 8 years in federal prison. For grand larceny, a sentence of 5 years will run concurrently. For identity theft and forgery, an additional 3 years will also be served concurrently. Your total sentence is 8 years, with eligibility for parole after serving 5 years. You are ordered to pay full restitution of $340,000 plus court costs and damages. Your offshore accounts will be seized and liquidated. Vanessa's lawyer discovered her wrongdoing. I sat in the gallery but felt no sense of victory. 6 months into her sentence, a letter from Vanessa arrived, nearly unopened. Handwritten over 3 pages, it was an apology, an account of neglect, a narrative of how the affair began innocently, and a justification for the spiraling debt. She claimed she intended to repay everything following the divorce. I read it once, then discarded it, for even now her words were false. 3 offshore accounts, 14 forged signatures weren't the result of something spiraling. They were actions of a thief. The money was returned in fragments, the offshore accounts frozen and liquidated. Through asset recovery and a criminal restitution order, I received $312,000 back. The remainder vanished, spent on an apartment with Kieran, trips, the lifestyle built with my stolen funds. Kieran ended ties with Vanessa upon her arrest. He moved to another state and changed professions. Though never charged, his reputation in commercial real estate was tarnished by testimony. I sold the house, too many reminders lingered, and frankly, I didn't want to dwell where Vanessa had been. I downsized to a downtown condo, began anew. When asked if I harbor anger or hate, my response is no, just done. Vanessa made her decisions. She chose deception over honesty, theft over partnership, a fleeting fantasy with a man she barely knew over a decade-long marriage. Now she faces the consequences in a federal prison, carrying her choices and mine as well. The choice to trust when it hurt, the choice to search even when it was agonizing, the choice to pursue justice despite being labeled vindictive. I stand by each one. For at the end of the day, I am not clad in an orange jumpsuit. I am the one reborn, and that is enough.